welcome back to the shipyard. Today I have a special guest with me, John Cmar. Am I pronouncing that right, John?
You're pronouncing it like 80% of the people in the world do, which is incorrect, but I
Ah,
respond to it. It's actually smar, like smart without the T, for whatever that's worth.
so John Smar.
Yes,
All right. Well, see, I want to learn. I want to pronounce things correctly. So,
excellent, excellent.
now
Well, thank you for having me on, David. It's great to be here.
you are most welcome, John. Now, the reason you're here is that you are probably the only person that I know of in the attack wing community who was at GAMA.
I am also the only person that I know of who was in the attack wing community who was at Gamma, but it was a fun time.
Now, of course, some random person in the comment section is going to say, "But I was there too, and you know me, David." And I'll be like, "Oh, okay, great. Then why didn't you tell me you were going? I would have had you on too."
Etc., etc. So I guess it might be worthwhile. I don't know. Do you think it'd be worthwhile to explain what Gamma is to
Well,
folks?
yes. I mean, I know it because of the board game world, but I would wager probably half of my audience doesn't.
So Gamma is the Game Manufacturers Association trade show. So it happens every year, and it's the one big board card miniature gaming convention that happens every year where gamers, consumers, regular folks who do not have a business stake in the industry actually are not among the audience. So it's really about companies that make games, companies that distribute and sell games, game designers, and most importantly, from my end, folks who run retail board game stores, of which I actually do. I have the Family Game Store, which is in Savage, Maryland, which is a cool name that's probably a bit cooler than the town it's in, but there you
As is
go.
often the case.
That is very true. So I went there under the auspices of the fact that as a co-owner of a board game store, this is a big industry thing. This is a lot of time where you can sit down and you can have real talk, sort of honest conversations about how things are going with different people in the industry. You get inside scoops on some things that are happening or folks' plans for the year. You talk a lot more business than just sort of, hey, this cool new game is coming, but a lot of it will be, it is a business, it is an industry. So, hey, this cool new game is coming out. And if you order this number of games, maybe we'll give you this extra thing, or these are the plans that we're doing for the next 6 months to help you promote the game to the people that you want as your customers and as your gamers to come and find out about it. So it's a different flavor, a little bit of than a Gen Con or an Origins or something like that. But the nice thing too is that there is actually time to stop and play games as well. It's actually one of the few times that, as someone who owns a game store, that you have a chance, a protected time to sit down and play a game. So, bottom line though is it's this industry thing, which is nice because then I feel like that in some ways the folks there are more approachable about questions, especially say pertaining to something like Star Trek Attack Wing, which I love and adore. And so being able to just hear a presentation and then go up to one of the main folks at WizKids afterwards and, chat about some stuff, that's cool. And that's what I love the most about it as an opportunity.
Which is really cool.
Yes.
It's something that most of us will never get to experience, which is fine. You need these trade shows so that people who are in the trade figure out the trade secrets, as they were.
Yes, no, that was good. You were going in a good direction. I appreciate that. That's good. I would like to say though, which is interesting, that based on especially my experiences there, I feel like pertinent to what we're talking about, the folks at WizKids are probably a little bit more approachable than some people may think. It's not that anyone thinks they're standoffish, but if you go to, say, an Origins or a Gen Con, and you're like, oh, I recognize that guy. I know he's one of the WizKids guys. I think some folks feel like that it's not easy to just go up and talk to them and ask a question. And it's true they might not be the right person to answer said question, but I have found all of them to be, in any venue, to be very approachable, very nice folks. And more importantly, they all especially a couple of the folks I talked to, very passionate actually about attack wing. It's a thing that they like. It's a thing that they want to succeed.
Which I've experienced too. I'll echo the story I told after Origins, which was the last day. WizKid's head Dice Masters guy sees me, goes, "Hey, you're the attack wing guy, right?"
The
I'm like,
one, the
"Yeah,
one guy, the one
the
guy.
the one guy." And it's like, well, one of them, and but he recognizes me, starts telling me about how excited they are for the future of attack wing, which we're now seeing. Some might say finally or about time.
Right.
I inject humor and sarcasm into this. It's what we do. But for Dice Masters, which some people think WizKids cares more about than Attack Wing, for one of their folks to be super excited about Attack Wing, it says something. It says that there's buzz in the office about the product.
Agreed. Completely agreed.
And when you have that, when you have a product that the company cares about, it has to mean something. Now, what I know about from WizKids is HeroClix is their big seller. Like, that's where they make probably the bulk of their money. It's what they're most known for, at least.
Right. And it's interesting, that they even talked about that some at GAMA about how the big theme for WizKids is they're trying to do different things. And as of a few years ago, Attack Wing was one of those different things. Back in 2010, it was something like 90 to 95% of their business was HeroClix. And now it's something like 35 to 40% because they had Dice Masters, and then of course, they had both varieties of Attack Wing, and now they're coming up with board games, and their other big thing is making minis for other licensed properties like Pathfinder and D&D compatible stuff, and of course for us, the deep cuts stuff that's going to be for Attack Wing compatible ships.
Right. And Star Trek Adventures, which
Yes, yes,
is also
very
doing
true.
super well for Modifius. And yeah, sorry, WizKids, you're gonna get a shout out for a different company here. But it's all Star Trek gaming, and we love Star Trek gaming, so cool models are cool models.
Precisely.
It all works together. And to have a product, I know personally I'm super excited about these deep cuts, mostly because I have a scimitar that went missing. Long story there. The short of it is it went missing. And so getting a deep cut scimitar is going to allow me to now have a second scimitar I can actually fly.
Absolutely. For me, the coolest thing was just comprehending when I picked up the Constitution class refit model, and it was before I even talked to them, and I'm like, wait, those are Terran Empire decals. And then I talked with them, and they actually pulled out one of the sticker sheets from the pack for me to look, and I'm like, I can actually, engaging my true, pure Star Trek fan of, wait, I can mod this to be the ISS Enterprise A. That is
Ooh,
fantastic. With the registry number and everything. Beautiful.
that's awesome. I read all the stuff you posted in the Facebook community about Gamma, but hearing that, it's actually sinking in how cool that will be.
Completely agreed. And then the same thing with the other Federation ships. I mean, I don't know for 100% certain, but the presumption based on what I was told is they're all going to have Miram Universe stuff. And so you'll have that you can do the ISS Voyager, the ISS
Ooh,
Enterprise E. So any of these things, in theory, they're
ooh,
all going to have the registries and they should all have the mirror stuff. I love it. That's
ooh,
great.
ooh. Yeah, ISS Voyager, that'll be something.
Yes.
It makes no sense for the mirror universe we know. They'd never develop a science
That's true.
ship. But
Yes, but
the
still.
Enterprise E makes sense.
Agreed.
It's only a logical step.
It is. Well, all of these are a logical step, but yes, some more likely conceptually than others. But no, and that's what I love about this is it's engaging. Back in the day when I was very young, I did a lot of just regular plastic kit model assembly, and I've got a original Constitution class Enterprise thing someplace. And so I originally cut my teeth back in the day on Starfleet Battles and the FASA Star Trek Tactical Combat Simulator. And so it's the older school, more crunchy, more ship simulation type of games that Attack Wing sort of captures the action spirit of those things. And so you naturally speculate as a fan of what if and what would that be like. And then now these things are coming with the water slide decals, which is the same thing that's on the classic old plastic models. And it's like, oh man, it's like uniting all of this cool stuff. And I don't care if it doesn't make sense. I don't care if it quote unquote really exists. I want my ISS Enterprise A, and now I'm going to have it. And that's a beautiful thing.
So you get your proverbial cake and to eat it too.
Fact. Yes.
Which is awesome. And I don't care if somebody shows up across the table from me with an ISS Enterprise A. It may feel wrong, but it's going to feel right.
Yes, that's absolutely correct. And then, of course, they've got the Borg assimilation decals. They've got the battle damage decals, and this goes back to what you were saying before about how much the people care about this. The one thing that struck me when I saw the decals is that for the Borg assimilation stuff is that it looks like you would expect, but it's very, very glowy green in spots. And the one person from WizKids, as I was looking at it and I was talking with him, and he said, yeah, actually, we're trying to rework those because it looks too green and too clean, and it needs to have this dingy sort of used a little bit of a rougher around the edges type of an appearance, because it's one thing to have your Borg cube, which has been that way, but it's another thing to have the Borg actively assimilating a chunk of a ship. And so the fact that he bothered to say that, that's on his mind, that to me is also very cool, because I wouldn't mind the decals as they are, but there's an attention to detail that at least some folks are paying attention to there, and like it's two thumbs up for me.
See, and that's super important for me to hear. People who regularly listen to me know that I'm not a WizKids apologist. I'm not their fanboy. I'm not going to sit up here and defend every decision they make. I think WizKids of old might have just said, well, that's what we got. That looks good enough. We're good. But for somebody to actively say, this is good, but it can be better, and we're going to make it better, that's a big step. That's super encouraging to say, we want a product that is as good as we can make it, that is worthy of Star Trek fans. And to get that kind of detail out of something that's, what, $5.99 US?
Yes, $5.99.
I mean, the registration decals alone, but then to also have, Prime, Mirror, Borg decals. I know the Romulans are coming with a full Warbird kit.
Yeah,
underneath.
the Warbird is going to have that whole orange decal for the bird for the underside, which that was actually the most exciting thing for me, because honestly, that attack wing, that model is the most striking one of all of. You can argue detail and molds, and the Romulan drone ship is fantastic for its detail with regards to the small bits and how they've cast it. But for me, my favorite one is actually the original Romulan Warbird, because it has that super cool orange bird pattern on the underside. And when they said, oh yeah, no, that's going to be one of the decals, yes, that's fantastic, that's great.
And the fact that it's a decal, it's an option. You don't have to put it on if you don't want to.
Right.
You could have some kind of a weird captured scenario where somebody's taken the ship, they've scrubbed the bird off, and they've got something else going on.
Yeah, you could mix and match decal. Now I'm getting. I mean, I had that obviously was conceptually available before, but now I'm getting really excited about the taking the decals and doing the Terran Empire modified / converted / stolen Romulan Warbird.
You can have a Terran Empire Riemann Warbird.
Yes.
Like, okay, that thought alone, if that doesn't excite you as a conceptual what if Star Trek fan, I don't know what does. And at this point, you're probably watching the wrong channel.
That's probably true.
Because, as I've long described this game, it is the greatest holodeck simulation of what if in the Star Trek world universe.
Yes. Yes.
However
Absolutely.
big you want to describe it. And that's all. This is what happens if two people were sitting in the holodeck and said, "Hey, what would happen if Kirk was on the Enterprise and Captain Picard was on a Klingon Vorchok class?" Well, let's find out.
Yeah, that's exactly what we have.
And it goes way beyond that, but it's kind of the fundamentals. And now with these decals, it goes even further. And yeah, it's all aesthetics, but aesthetics are half the fun, or a quarter of the fun, or I don't know. They're some percentage of the fun, and you get to decide what that percentage is for you.
Right. But it's clearly part of the fun. And speaking of fun, it's to expand on that last point about my conversation with them about the Borg decals. This is, WizKids has multiple priorities. They are a company. In no way, shape, or form would I ever want to come across as being some sort of an apologist for them, because I am co-owner of a game store, and part of what I do, I'm a huge gamer, but part of this is I have to be cognizant of business things, and I know they still do the most business in HeroClix, and they've got Dice Masters, and they've got their board games. But to hear them continue to say that, I went to multiple presentations from them at GAMA, and they mentioned, in almost all of them, they made a point of mentioning stuff about Attack Wing, and so they didn't have to do that. They didn't mention every single thing that they do, and in fact, the main presenter was really pointing out, that he is a Star Trek fan at heart, and so that's why he feels that this not only the property that they've got Star Trek licensed for multiple games, as we noted, but of which Attack Wing is one. But that's why he loves that, and he really likes the Attack Wing game, and he really likes the Star Trek property, and he wants to see it succeed. And so that to me is something to hang my hat on. It's not their biggest priority, but it is a priority for them, and they want it to succeed, and they're putting their energy in that, and we've seen with all the new releases over the last 6 months or so that clearly uh, they're things are in a much better place than they were a year ago. And I don't get the sense, at least from what my experience of the conversations were, that they want it to go away. That they're like, all right, we put this effort into it, and then once the last release thing is gone, it's gone and done. I mean, they really seem like that they want this to be a longitudinal thing. They want this game to have staying power. And of course, all of us who have fun playing it, that's what we want as well.
Well, and perhaps to go out on a limb, and this is purely my brain speculating, but I think maybe if those questions had been asked of them 2 years ago, the hope for Attack Wing might not have been anywhere near what it was. And last year at this time, they probably had the new starter and the start of the card packs and the Romulan and Dominion faction packs in their mind that was starting to come together this
Right.
time last year. But 2 years ago, what does the future of the game look like at that point? They've got some Zindi stuff coming out, the re-releases of old ships. That doesn't sound like a game that's got 2 more years in it.
No, and then you look at the other piece going along with it, is that's also the same time where they said something about we are pausing D&D Attack Wing to sort of restructure the product, which most people probably correctly read as code for as this is done. And so they had two games, and they were essentially saying, all right, this one isn't, we're just not it's not selling enough, there's not enough interest in it for it to be worth our time. And then everyone looks at the state of Star Trek Attack Wing, and it's exactly what you just said. And so things were not looking like it was going to go in a positive direction over the next year in terms of things. And so now we've fortunately reached a much better place from that standpoint, and that's why I try to stay. I mean, I try to stay as realistic as I can, but I also try to stay positive because I love this game. I have fun playing it. I love trying to do the competitive stuff. I am possibly not what Joseph Vanderyacht would call a good form player in terms of being highly competitive or something like that.
Yeah.
But I certainly enjoy I think I'm pretty good at the game. I enjoy myself. I love just coming up with different fleets and combinations, and sometimes it's for super combos, and sometimes it's for fun, and it's a mix of different things.
Yeah, it's crazy now that you look at the release schedule, and we've got a Kelvin faction pack coming. We've got uh, a a Gorn, no, not a Gorn, a Hirogen and a Federation Fighter card pack coming. We've got a animated series faction pack. We've got uh I'm blanking.
Well, there's the Cardassian faction pack,
Yeah,
Cardassian specific, and the one they just think someone found online the release notes for a Vulcan faction
Vulcan,
pack.
Borg.
And the Borg, yes.
Yeah. I think I threw animated series out there.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it's yeah, we've got product announced through October, November, something
Hmm.
like that. And
Yep,
something every month except for April now. And I'd wager that's due to some kind of a production or shipment delay. Just a
right.
guess. I know nothing. Um,
Yeah, I even asked just in general, and I already knew what the answer was going to be because they'll just say, "Oh yeah, that it didn't." Some sort of business terminology of that did not align with our optimal distribution priorities or something like that. So we don't know, and I don't even view that as even a big deal or something to quibble about. With this game, I am happy to be patient with regards to releases and when we get stuff. I'm just glad. I'm just a thirsty person who is now continuously getting aliquots of fresh water.
yeah, it's
That's a weird analogy. I apologize for that.
no, it works. It's we have to remember a faction pack is like getting 4 new ships every month.
Yeah, and these packs are so good, and you can debate, of course, the Dominion pack, as some would do, but
Oh,
like I had.
there's no debate. That pack's terrible.
Okay, fair enough. But I will say I had a player who walked in. It's not even someone who's been able to find because we at our store we haven't been able to get in a bunch of the new starter sets, which is, I mean, similar experience for most people. We got in a few and then we sold out of them, and it's been really hard to get more. But we've got a player who just has the old starter set and he's got some other stuff. He really wanted to play in the OP this last weekend, and he was rushing to make it to the store, and he grabbed the wrong case that he thought had his attack wing stuff in it in terms of his ships, and he didn't. So
Oh,
he bought a Romulan faction pack off the shelf, and he won one, and he ended up losing two, but those were intensely close games.
yeah, that
And
pack
so
is good
yes,
off out of the box.
yeah, that was, and he really, and he hadn't had that pack before, and so now he's actually a converted Romulan player. Shout out to Ellis Norris, who's always representing the Romulans.
Oh yeah, yeah,
Yeah. But so he's like because he was actually a big Dominion player because that's what he had, and now he's like, I like the sector echoing out of your firing arc all the time. This is very good. I could do more with this.
yeah. And Aladar Jarok is a very
Uh,
hidden MVP.
that is true, Jarok.
Jarok, the new Khan.
Yes. So let me see. So the big things that I got to see at GAMA to make sure we're covering all our bases.
Well,
There. Yes, go ahead. Sorry.
there is a Ferengi board game coming out from WizKids.
They they announced that, and so they didn't have much to be able to say about it, but it was essentially about, listen, you've always wanted to play a game that was essentially a cutthroat game of the rules of acquisition, right? Well, we
Right.
have one for you. Yes.
Yeah. I mean, guys, if you don't think that's coming to the shipyard at some point, what are you doing with your life?
Exactly. You've made poor life choices
You've
if you
made,
are
well,
not.
or you just don't know me that well. But come on, come on, it's the Ferengi.
Yeah, so conceptually, that sounds fantastic.
It does.
They had 9 of the deep cuts miniatures there. It was the Bird of Prey, the Intrepid class, the Riemann Warbird, Constitution refit, the Dideridex, which for my money actually looks the coolest with how the mold looks, because the whole point is it's the exact same molds that they use for the attack wing ships, but they're primed and they may be etched in the grooves and the detailing a little bit better to be able to hold paint. And the Dideridex looks spectacular unpainted, and so I could see that that's going to be a excellent canvas for people to be able to paint those. Looking really cool. And then the Galaxy and the Sovereign and the Klingon Bird of Prey and the Katinga, which as I had to take multiple pictures to verify for some folks, does have its nacelles and its bridge in the appropriate alignment.
I would hope so, because if they didn't at this point, somebody, well, I can't use that phrase anymore. Somebody would have some questions they'd have to answer.
That is true. That's very true. It feels like that would be it's a correctable I don't know that I want to say the word mistake.
Eh.
Correctable design issue at this point.
Oh, hey, this is fun, and this is actually completely new to me. I just looked on the Win solicit list, because I
Yes.
too have a store account that I can see orders from.
Excellent.
Hidden information. There's a wave 2 of Star Trek deep cuts now.
So I share your enthusiasm. So I went and I Googled and I found the solicit that you were just talking about
Okay.
that went up 6 hours before we started recording right now.
Yes.
So this is we have breaking news, David.
I know. Of course, this will be old by the time I get it edited, but hopefully, we're recording this on Monday night. Hopefully, it'll be up. It might be up Tuesday morning, if not Wednesday morning.
Right.
We'll see. So here are the 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, the 10 unpainted.
Sweet.
For the audience, we have the
Yes.
Jem'Hadar battle cruiser and the Jem'Hadar attack ship, the Cardassian Galler and Keldon, the Vorcha, always good to have a Vorcha,
Yes.
the NX class, and that gets me excited because that brings Columbia to my head of eventually getting a card pack or something in attack wing.
Yeah.
The Miranda class, who knows? The Excelsior class, as if we don't have enough Excelsior class models in this game.
True.
The Decora, I mean, I guess, and a Valdor class, and that's a pretty ship.
That is a pretty ship. I agree. I'm most excited about the NX class.
That'll look nice.
Sweet.
That will look nice.
Now, the one other attack wing specific thing that I heard about that I don't have much more information on because they didn't really have much to share is when they were talking about at GAMA the mirror Kelvin timeline pack. They made a point, of course, pointing out that they're pulling in 2 new ship sculpts into the game, and of course they're not necessarily new. They're new to attack wing, but at least it's new to attack wing for both the Constitution class Kelvin and for the Katinga Kelvin. But they also said that they are debuting a new card, and the phrase specifically was never before seen double-sided specialization cards.
Mm,
And they weren't able to explain more what that was because I think that it probably was a bullet point that they had put up just for marketing. But I mean,
probably.
it sounds interesting, and what someone pointed out to me who knows X-Wing very well is apparently there is a type of a card in X-Wing where essentially you have one side, and I apologize to anyone who knows better what this is than I do. But my understanding is that it's a card where you've got one side that has a potential utility that you can use, and then if, say, at the end of the round you have an unspent token from an action, you can actually choose to spend one of those tokens to flip the card to the other side so that it does something more interesting or different or more powerful. But so that's kind of interesting that they're putting in this new whatever the mechanic's going to be flip card in the game, and we already see that from the starter set with Lurser and Betor. So could they be doing that with other cards where you could make choices about, okay, I've got two options, I can only ever have one up at a time. It's sort of like a mini version almost of like the resource sideboard or the reinforcement sideboard, right?
Yeah.
Because you have the option to swap things in and out, and so you're not swapping, but being able to flip cards, and again, I don't know what it is, that would add another element of intrigue, I think, into the game.
I think that any new building into the game, any new mechanics is helpful as long as it doesn't get way too convoluted. You want people to still be able to kind of pick it up and play and learn, and more so you want your opponent to be able to track what you're doing even if they don't have the card. But
Right.
still, development is a good thing. Having things that do unique abilities is a very good thing, and the design space is fairly limited. So having increased flexibility, even if it's spend an action and flip the card, like that could be a thing.
Right.
I don't, I
That's
don't
true.
know. There's
No,
all
so I mean,
kinds of cool options.
absolutely. So I'm just interested to see where that goes. And again, I think it's, uh, it's a sign of the work that people have done. It's a sign of the input that they have taken seriously from the community. There was a group of folks who had the good fortune of being play testers, and I think that's awesome. Arguably, I feel like that wouldn't it have been nice for a group of play testers to have been officially engaged by WizKids earlier in the game? I feel
Yes.
that that would have been cool, but I'm not going to pine for something that never was. I'm glad that it's happening now, and so incorporating a new idea. This is a pack that hasn't even come out yet. That's in a couple of months, and so that's great. We've got new mechanics. Uh, Again, I hopefully a commitment to continuing to grow and develop the game because I love it. I don't want it to go anyplace.
I think that's a sentiment we all share.
Yes.
As that, well, I think we do want it to go someplace. Second star to the right and straight on till morning, as
Ah,
as Captain Kirk would say.
of course, I see what you did there,
And
and I agree.
it's well, to boldly go.
Indeed.
Now I'm just throwing out Star Trek cliches, but the the idea is there. We want this game to keep on going, and I've said it before for a long time. I'm in this until WizKids isn't, and then I pick it up and I build a design team, and we just keep on going.
Precisely.
Like this game will not die. The fans of this game will not let it die. WizKids is providing models and official stuff until they no longer do, and then the fans take over and do cool stuff too.
Precisely. And it's interesting. The one of the most fun tackling experiences I've ever had was there was a large gaming party, making a long story very short, that uh, my wife actually arranges every year, and there's a bunch of us who come, a lot of close friends and connections. And I brought the big Borg cube, the original one, not the Borg with the sphere port. And you had all these folks who had never played Attack Wing who then start drooling it, and they want to touch it and they want to pick it up. And suddenly they're taking selfies with it because it's the most amazing thing they have ever seen. And so what we decided to do was run the Wolf 359 scenario that came with the original cube. And I was able to corral a bunch of people to play. And of the people, I think probably let's guess that maybe there were 8 people playing. I was the Borg cube. One of the other people was a regular Attack Wing player who's a very good friend of mine. One of them is someone who played D&D Attack Wing once, and no one else had ever played.
Mm.
And so the idea was we built a very quick Federation fleet, so everybody got a Fed ship with an interesting captain and a couple cool upgrades, because the scenario calls for X amount of points, whatever, of Federation ships. And it was an absolute blast, just because you had people who were learning the game and they didn't have to deal with the complexity of a lot of different card interactions, but they got a flavor for what was going on. And everyone sort of, like, they knew the next generation, they knew the Battle of Wolf 359, they knew what was going to happen. And at the end of the day, the scenario ended up taking, granted, when you're playing in a large group of people, things take much or less efficient, but it took over almost 3 hours. And at the very end, it came down to the Borg ship and the Enterprise D, and the Enterprise D had 1 hull point left, and then took out the Borg ship with the last phaser blast, and it was perfect. It was beautiful, and that was a lot of fun.
That's what Attack Wing is. And if it had gone the other way, I'd say the same thing.
No, and that's the beauty of it, is that the guy who hit the last, and he was the one who had played D&D once before but hadn't played Star Trek. But still, it was like this. Everyone would have been perfectly happy to see the Borg wipe everyone out, but they're also perfectly happy to see the Federation eke out at the very last minute the victory.
That Borg cube does wonders. I had it at a convention here local, and people would walk by and be like, "Wait, what is that? That's a Borg cube. We gotta go look at that." It's like, never mind the Riemann Warbird, the Enterprise E, all the other cool ships that were there. No, that's a Borg cube, and that's what does it.
There's a sexiness factor there. We saw the same thing where we had one game, one event that we had that was a little bit, in our store, it was a little bit more towards the entrance. And so one person had the cube, the other person had DS9, and it was very much this big, sexy, oh, what is that? I know what that is. Oh my God, is that a Borg cube?
It does it. And that's the thing. It's what this game does. It can draw people in, and when you see people that are looking, engage them, talk to them, approach them. Don't be the guy sitting in the corner that's like, "It's my game. You can't have this. It's my game." Because nobody likes that guy. I know.
That's true. And go. I'm sorry. Go
ahead. I brought the Borg cube to a tournament just for the sake of, I thought it would be good in the tournament, but B, I want to show it off, and I want people to approach me, and I'll be able to talk to them about the game. And I can't do that if I'm running like a couple of Klingon birds of prey and fighter squadrons. That doesn't draw anybody in. They're like, "Oh, cool, they're playing Star Trek," but it's, wait, you're playing with Deep Space Nine, or you're playing with the Borg cube? Like, hey, WizKids, while you're maybe listening to this still, I don't know, more giant models. That's what we want to see.
That's right. Even one more giant model.
Like the crystalline entity. Although they might have to replace that far too many times, but I'd be okay if it was all plastic. like just good plastic, thick
Oh, absolutely.
plastic that
Yeah.
wouldn't really shatter, like,
Yeah.
or pieces that would connect into a center core. Something could be made.
Oh yeah. No, and even I would vote go retro. Do the original space station
Oh,
from
case.
TOS.
Oh,
And
K7.
yeah, do K7 have the ability to actually dock like clip-on ships?
Ooh,
I'm
yeah.
thinking big, but that would be fantastic.
That would be something good. Yeah, I guess. Well, that's kind of transition. So I'll get you out on this. You run a store. You play Attack Wing. You see people play Attack Wing. As a store owner, what kind of models do you think this game needs? Like new sculpts, provided
Right.
WizKids is actually going to make new sculpts. What kind of models could they put in a game that you think would actually sell?
That is an excellent question. And you know that since this is audio, one of us has to say it out loud, but we don't need to say Enterprise C out loud
Uh,
because that's the one that obviously everybody wants.
well, it's an Enterprise. It's going to sell.
Yes. Oh, of course.
But it has to be said.
Right. I would say, the if it were up to me, the honestly, and I'm thinking, okay, so now I'm thinking about this purely from a business, from a sales standpoint. I'm not thinking about this from what people necessarily think of the TV shows in terms of, or movies in terms of opinion of quality. I do think that doing two or three of the Discovery ships would be a wise idea. And that's
Yeah,
opening a whole nother can of worms, but it's like, because whatever you want to say about the Discovery, I really like the Shenzhou. I really like several of the other Fed ship designs, and I think those would be striking and interesting and look
yes.
really good as models on the table. I think that a couple of, from a marketing standpoint, even going back to Enterprise a little bit more, if I had my own personal favorite ship that they haven't made yet, and I could cheat and Google or Memory Alpha right now, but I'm not going to. There is an episode of Enterprise that's within the first season where they ran into an unnamed attacker.
Okay.
And I don't think they ever named what the alien race was, and they never ran into them again. Although, of course, they reused the ship model for something else.
Of
But
course.
it was a pretty sweet ship, and the theme of the episode was like this was a first big encounter with an alien race who didn't communicate, who just attacked, and it was sort of a stress test of that whole. All right, we're out here to make peaceful accords with new races, and oh crap, what can the ship do from a combat standpoint? And I can't remember if that was the first ever in series use of the phase cannons or not. But I remember it was striking because they were very much outmatched, and they eventually there was a positive resolution because they were clever. It's the classic Star Trek story. It's the
Of
ingenuity
course. Yeah.
of the people who are outgunned and outmanned. But I really liked that. And you could argue the quality of the Enterprise episodes, especially in season one. But I really liked that episode for that, and it was a neat enemy ship design, and so I
Hmm.
think that would be a very interesting new sculpt.
Okay.
Um,
I
argue
remember the ship you're talking about.
right, it's
I too cannot name the episode nor anything more than what you've named, but I remember the sculpt.
right, and it was green. It looked kind of like a manta ray thing, I think, but it very very striking, very nice design. I wouldn't be opposed to uh, a couple of more. I would love to see, in addition to what they've already got coming out for the Mirror Kelvin, I would love to see the actual Kelvin. That would be cool.
Yeah.
And just from a drooling over having a big, ugly-looking Federation ship getting the dreadnought from uh, Into Darkness.
The Vengeance.
Yes, yes, the
Yeah.
Vengeance. That would be.
Okay.
I would find that personally delightful.
Yes, I would like to see. What did they name it? The ship from Beyond, the one that kind of looks
Oh,
like
the
an NX.
Franklin. Yes,
Yes,
the Franklin. Hmm.
it's kind of an NX. It's kind of not. It's
Yeah,
it could work.
it could work. Well, I've got a soft spot in my heart because I've been recently rewatching, well, watching for the first time most of Enterprise because I didn't actually watch the entire thing when it originally came out. Something about the show was not terribly engaging, and I had other things to do, which makes me weep inside as a Star Trek fan, which is why I'm going back to it now on Netflix. But
Well,
I'm
now you don't have to wait weeks at a time for new episodes during season 3. You get to watch them as it was probably intended, which is in one nice arc.
precisely. But I am a huge fan of the NX Enterprise more than just as a ship design, as an aesthetic thing. And of course, the Franklin in the movie was dirty and it was buried under rocks. But I would love to see that as well. I agree because I think that would be cool and that would fit in with that piece.
Yeah. So I think there's room for some more stuff. I think it's almost inevitable that we get one, if not two, Discovery packs. I could see
Right,
them doing a Federation Discovery, a Klingon Discovery pack, maybe a Discovery A, Discovery B, so that you put the Shenzhou in one pack, the Discovery in another pack, make them
right.
both marketable. But
But oh God, David, oh God, what do we do about? Well, I guess Discovery. Okay, never mind. I was going to make this whole mirror thing because we already have mirror versions of at least a couple of the ships that are canon.
there you go.
So
You
that
you
would
put
have to be.
you put the USS and the ISS in the same pack.
Hmm.
Now I got to put a spoiler tag in here.
Oh no, darn it! Although you could have a dual faction Lorca,
Ooh,
Federation and Mirror.
and a captain crew dual-sided Tilly.
That would be fantastic.
It would be. Now I really have to put spoilers in here.
Or just edit that piece out.
Yeah, but one of those two is going to happen.
Yes,
It's probably going to be spoilers.
that's more fun.
It's far more fun that way. Well, John, it's been a blast. It's good to hear what happened at Gamma, hear that WizKids is passionate about this. We know it's not number one priority, but it's nice to know that in a world where we thought maybe Attack Wing was off on a side burner, that maybe that burner wasn't even turned on, it's still on the stove. They're still looking on it, looking after it. That's the right phrase. And somebody's keeping an eye on it, and maybe from time to time it gets moved to the front. Somebody stirs it, and there's attention to what's going on here, and that's all we've really asked for.
That's true. But now the problem is that I'm thinking of a Iron Chef episode with celebrity chefs,
Oh yeah, well,
Shatner, and who I'm trying to figure out who else. You could have your celebrity chefs, and the secret ingredient is Attack Wing. What can you make out of this?
Nothing fit for human consumption. That's for certain.
That's right. Or it could be a game design Iron Chef. Those things actually work. Anyway,
They do, and they happen.
they do.
And
I've seen a couple of them where it's and this hasn't like for board games where they actually say, all right, you've got and usually it's at conventions and it's a one-off sort of a gimmick thing,
yeah,
but you have game designers and you're given this limited set of of mechanics or ingredients, and then you've got X amount of time to come up with 2 or 3 games, it could work.
I I could see it happening for Attack Wing. You've got a very limited amount of time constraints to design a card or a faction, not a faction, but a card pack.
Right.
It could be a
Yeah, I could
thing.
see that.
WizKids, it could be a challenge.
Ooh.
And then, of course, it's got to be play tested out and all of that and refined. But the whole design, the initial design concept can happen in 2 hours.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I can see that.
And it's all restricted to a ship, a faction card idea. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
You don't pay me the big bucks for this. I'm just an idea man.
We're all just apparently the idea guys.
That's called crowdsourcing, I believe.
It is. That's very true. But thank you so much for having me on, David. This has been awesome. I really appreciate the opportunity and the conversation.
Hey, I love talking Trek, and that's all good stuff. So, as we say around here, until next time, we'll see you around the shipyard. Take care, guys.